Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by asking a massive, mind-bending question. How on earth did humanity figure out the universe before modern science even existed? Seriously, before laboratories, before formal physics, there were just people looking up at the sky, asking why.
Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to trace the absolute thrill ride that is the intellectual arms race of early Western thought. We're going to see how early humans went from, blaming every single thunderstorm on some angry god to literally conceptualizing the building blocks of reality. It's a wild ride, from atoms to arguments, so strap in.
Here's the system crash and patch evolutionary arc we'll be following today. We've got 1. Seeking the first origin. 2. The war of reality. 3. Math and cosmic mind. 4. Logic traps and atoms. 5. The rise of relativism. And 6. Setting the Socratic stage. So starting off with section 1, seeking the first origin. This is all about the Milesians and the birth of naturalism. Our story kicks off on the coast of Ionia way back in the 6th century BCE with a group called the Milesian School. Now, these thinkers were literally the very first folks to look at a chaotic weather event and say, wait a second, maybe this isn't just the gods having a fight. Instead of falling back on mythology, they went looking for what they called the arche. Basically, they were hunting for the single foundational source or the fundamental substance that makes up absolutely everything in reality. It's so fascinating how these guys tackled this massive puzzle. Thales looks around and goes, it's water. Everything comes from water. Then his student, Anaximenes, steps up and argues, actually no, it's air. But then Anaximander boldly leaps completely beyond the physical stuff you can touch. He proposed the apeiron, this invisible, boundless, limitless energy. Just imagine that. He was conceptualizing abstract energy thousands of years before modern physics was even a blip on the radar. So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that they gave us naturalism. This was a massive paradigm shift, guys. By looking for that arche, they basically proved the world isn't just driven by unpredictable magic. It's a machine. It has operating rules. And if it's a machine, well, that means we actually have the capacity to decode it and understand it. Moving right along to section 2, the war of reality. This is the ultimate showdown, Parmenides versus Heraclitus. Right, so once we kind of figured out what the world might be made of, a brand new bug popped up in this system. We had to figure out, is it moving? This perfectly illustrates our first great system crash in philosophy. On one side, you have Heraclitus. He looks at a river and says, Panta re, everything flows. Change is literally the only constant, driven by this hidden harmony. But then, Parmenides strikes back with just cold, hard logic. He argues that change is a total hallucination. Think about it. If something is, it can't suddenly become something else. Therefore, reality has to be this solid, eternal, totally unchanging sphere. This epic collision absolutely broke the philosophical system of the ancient world. It left the next generation of thinkers staring down a massive, massive paradox. They had to figure it out. Is the universe a constantly flowing river, or is it a completely frozen, unchanging rock? Which brings us to section 3, Math and Cosmic Mind, featuring Pythagoras and Anaxagoras. So to patch this massive deadlock between the river and the rock, the next generation realized they had to build a bridge. Pythagoras steps up to the plate first. He realized the universe isn't just made of stuff. He looked at the stars, he looked at lyre strings, and found number. He saw the universe as this perfect mathematical symphony. Meanwhile, Anaxagoras comes in and introduces nous, or a cosmic mind. He's proposing that there's this cosmic intelligence actively organizing infinite, tiny seeds of matter. And here's the coolest part. Anaxagoras wasn't just sitting around spinning abstract theories. He was actually the first person to figure out that the moon doesn't generate its own light, but reflects the sun. This brilliantly shows us how science wasn't just abstract philosophy anymore. It was becoming a profound, practical tool of enlightenment to actually explain the heavens. All right, let's hit section 4, logic traps and atoms. Enter Zeno and Democritus. Well, it turns out this fancy new intellectual software still had some serious vulnerabilities. As we're about to see, pure logic can actually become a pretty dangerous weapon. Zeno of Elea effectively became the ultimate troll of the ancient world by weaponizing logic to prove that motion is an illusion. In his famous paradox, Achilles races a tortoise and gives it a head start. By the time Achilles reaches the tortoise's starting point, the tortoise has moved forward. You reach that new point, it's moved again. Zeno proved that if you zoom in and divide space infinitely, the world just freezes into an impossible loop. No matter how fast you are, you can literally never catch the tortoise. So how on earth do you fix an infinite loop? Thankfully, Democritus arrived to cut the Gordian knot. He patched this infinite division glitch by inventing a concept that I guarantee sounds very familiar to you: the atom. He realized, actually, scratch that, he proved you cannot divide matter forever. Eventually, you're going to hit a fundamental, uncuttable base layer. He stopped the madness by declaring that ultimately, reality is just atoms and the void. Problem solved. Now for Section 5, the rise of relativism, brought to you by the Sophists. By the 5th century BCE, our explainer takes a dramatic turn. We're shifting our focus away from the stars in the sky, right down to the bustling, highly political streets of Athens. Enter the Sophists. You can kind of think of them as the highly paid political spin doctors of the ancient world. They were led by Protagoras, who completely flipped the script with one profound, entirely human-centric idea. He said, man is the measure of all things. Now, you might be wondering, what does that actually mean? Well, this idea quickly builds into something pretty dangerous. The Sophists realized that if humans are the measure, then truth, with a capital T, doesn't really exist out there in the universe. It's just perspective. Protagoras proved through these clever paradoxes that logic could be twisted to justify absolutely anything. Truth was no longer this noble pursuit of cosmic harmony. It had just become a game of persuasion, rhetoric, and cold political power. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, setting the Socratic stage, the ultimate question. We have traveled a massive intellectual distance today, so let's lock in everything we've uncovered so far. Our journey perfectly tracks human intellectual evolution. We started way back with the Milesians finding naturalism in a drop of water. We watched the Eleatics and Mobilists battle over logic and change. The pluralists stepped in with the cosmic mind. Democritus handed us the atom. And finally, the sophists brought us back down to earth with relativism and human rhetoric. It's the whole shebang. But here's exactly why this matters to us today, and what you really need to take away from all of this. Look closely at what we achieved. In this grand intellectual arms race, humanity successfully figured out the how of the universe through naturalism and atoms. We cracked the logic of the mind, but in doing all of that, we entirely forgot human morality. We completely, totally missed the why. While the Sophists were out there celebrating their wealth and their flashy ability to argue any side of a truth, a barefoot, incredibly annoying guy was just waiting in the Athenian shadows. He was about to ask the question that would change Western civilization forever. He famously declared, "I know that I know nothing, but what is the good?" Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. We learned how to measure the entire universe, but we didn't know how to measure our own character. So what happens to a society when the relentless search for physical truth collides head-on with the ultimate search for the good? Think about that as you navigate our modern, science-driven world. Until next time, keep questioning everything.